There's a lot of questions I have at the beginning of this video, and it's because Aaron Glenn has become kind of polarizing with Detroit Lions fans, Detroit Lions Nation. And I think some of the fans out there really want to retain and keep Aaron Glenn. They understand the importance that he has on this team. They understand that he was working with a very young defense and all of that. Other side of the fans believe that it's okay if Aaron Glenn goes and maybe we could upgrade at defensive coordinator. There are two very, very strong lines of thinking here. I like to side with what Dan Campbell believes, and Dan Campbell has been unwavering on Aaron Glenn. But that doesn't change the fact that we could lose him. Like Aaron Glenn could be gone. He is listed as being one of the front runners or favorites for the Arizona Cardinals job. He's not so much in the talking about that for the Colts job anymore, but he is one for the Cardinals. As we read in this article, and this is Jeff Risdon, who does a pretty good job. Aaron Glenn remains as a head coaching candidate for the Cardinals. We know that, but here's what it says. It's the Cardinals who are the team to watch regarding Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. He's already interviewed once back on January 21st, while other candidates, namely Sean Payton, have come and gone. Glenn is generally regarded as one of the top three candidates, along with Broncos defensive coordinator and Steelers assistant Brian Flores. Look, okay, so as we look at this, I think we have to first realize like it is a real possibility that we lose Aaron Glenn. And when you hear me say that, what's your first thought? What's your first thought? Go with it. Like, just go with it. Maybe leave a comment below. Like, what's your first thought? Is it good? See ya? Is it, oh no, the defense is starting to build something really good? Is it, man, Aaron Glenn's a really good, vital, key part of this team? And I think here's the thing that we have to understand about Aaron Glenn. A lot of people have said Aaron Glenn is a good defensive coordinator, but he could be a very good head coach. And a lot of people have this belief where they talk about him, I think, in the national media and people that cover the team kind of talk about Aaron Glenn like, how do I put it? They say more along the lines of Aaron Glenn could be a better head coach than defensive coordinator. Maybe X's and O's aren't necessarily his strongest suit. I don't know if I buy all that in both ways. I don't think you just become a great head coach, but I also really think that Aaron Glenn does command a locker room. I think that he has the respect of his players, and that is what makes him not only a good defensive coordinator, but a good coach. Now, stats, we can sometimes say stats don't lie. Of the Lions' defensive statistics, we're not good. But at the same time, we're running out lineups where the best six players on the team are all rookies or second year guys. Like, that's not easy to coach a team like that, especially early in the year. And that's what we saw on our defense, that it started absolutely atrocious and then got better as the year went on and got to a point in the back half of the year where they were an acceptable defense that played complementary football with a top 5, top 10 offense. So let's look at Aaron Glenn, the head coaching candidate. I think we can think back, and there's one moment where I was like, okay, dude gets it. And it was on Hard Knocks. And he was addressing the team and he was calling out different players. Where'd you play? Guys, Alabama, Ohio State, LSU, whatever it might be. And he'd be like, you went and you expected to win, didn't you? And every one of them come from these winning universities, and every one of them expected to win. And he's like, we are bringing that culture here. That was a really good, well said moment by Aaron Glenn. But the other reason I think Aaron Glenn is good at what he does is because Dan Campbell is full in on him. It is starting to become more and more apparent now that we're done with year 2 of the Dan Campbell era, that he is more of an offensive-minded coach. He is a hard-nosed coach, which you might equate with defense, but he spent his entire career on the offensive side of the ball. And that is where a lot of his focus is at. So when we look at a guy like Dan Campbell, he's on offense. And I think that's why last year you saw him absolutely terrified at the notion that Aaron Glenn would leave. He even talked about we can't lose Green or Glenn and Pleasant. We can't do it. They ended up firing Pleasant. But they couldn't do it. Now this year, Ben Johnson has his name everywhere, and you see Dan Campbell's like, yeah, it's okay. We're going to be all right. And then Ben Johnson stays. And I think he stays because he has more to learn. I know this sounds crazy. I think Ben Johnson has more to learn from Dan Campbell. But I think Dan Campbell relies much more heavily on Aaron Glenn to run the defense than he relies on Ben Johnson to run the offense. It was never a question from day one whose defense this was. It was Aaron Glenn's. Now, they're both hard-nosed guys. It works out really well. They complement each other very well in their coaching styles because they're both hard-nosed and they want to play tough, gritty, physical football. And that's what you want to see out of a defensive coordinator and out of a defense. But at the same time, we have to realize like that doesn't mean that defense is Dan Campbell's wheelhouse. So the question remains, are you afraid of us losing Aaron Glenn? And my answer is unequivocally yes. I think we have Shep, we have Calvin Shepard, that is our linebackers coach, and he has proven to be a good coach. Is he ready to take that next step, though? I think that when you lose coordinators before you even accomplish anything, before you get to the playoffs, before you win in the playoffs, before you have a large amount of success, to lose coordinators as the team is on the rise, which we are, that is devastating. And you want to keep everything intact, in place, to keep the momentum going, to build up, to get to a point where all of a sudden you're saying, yep, we have arrived. And now you want a year or two to realize we need to build internally here. We need to build internally. Ben Johnson sticking around another year will help that happen. Even if he's gone after next year, there will be a guy waiting internally that's seeing what we do, how we do things. I can guarantee you in that locker room, it's who are we training up? Who's going to be our offensive coordinators as close as possible to next year. The same thing has to go for defensive coordinator. And you just wonder if there's anybody in house that can take that over, that has the mindset, that has the ability with the play calling. So I think Shepard absolutely could be that guy in the future. I really do. The question is he ready now? And that's why I think Aaron Glenn is such an important piece, not just for play calling, but for setting the tone on the defense, being the calm guy at the top who says, this is the way it's going to be. This is the way we're going to go about our business. I think it's huge. So yes, I do fear losing Aaron Glenn. I know a lot of fans out there think it's probably a smaller deal than it is. I think it's a big deal. And I would hate to see all these young guys that have only known Aaron Glenn as their defensive coordinator over their first year or two in the NFL. All of a sudden he's gone. That could be a regression. And I don't think this team, even next year, will be good enough and have enough talent to overcome the defense taking 6-7 weeks to figure out and get their footing. They have their footing now. They understand what they're doing going into next year, and they're only going to add more talent. So it would be really nice if you could have continuity in the coaching staff as that happens. So Aaron Glenn, please stay. Please stay. It would be so nice to have you for another year. And you can prove that you do have the chops as a play caller when you have more talent on the defense. All right. Hit that subscribe button below if you haven't already. We'd love to have you here at Sports Talk Detroit, and we will see you on the next one.